with some of the basic things that I see people missing. Here we have a basic structure where I find if you put the board, the keel in a clamping board, everything stays straight, and then you start building up with your bulkheads. And also, what I do is, you notice I put in these pieces here to stabilize the bulkhead, and you keep everything square. So this is usually how I'll start a ship similar to this. All right, now, in this particular case, you want to be sure that you can hold your ship upside down. So in this particular case, I'm using, usually you can use the masts. And in this particular case, I can flip it upside down, and I'll use the two clamps, the parallel places, so I can lift it and clamp it. But a good point is make sure that you can handle your ship upside down when you do your planking. It just helps a lot if you can do that part. Another view here, kind of showing how I put some stabilizers in and then stabilize the bulkheads as I go along. Just another view there, a couple of more. Now, these are clamps that I make that go into the hologram vise, and what they do is they drop in, and they're extended jaws that stick up, and you can then take and hold the keel. Now and you can hold that for quite a while from the bottom, very stable, and you just plank up to that, and then you turn it upside down. But those will fit the standard vise. They drop in, and they're jaws that stick up a little bit higher. Very good way of stabilizing the hold. If you want a copy of those, I've got a copy of those. Here you see how I'm doing it. The jaw fits in. You can never buy enough, believe me guys, you can never buy enough of these vices. They are just the best thing. Now you notice how the firm hold I have on that keel with this extended vice jaw going up here. And you can work a long time on the top and the bottom, and you can actually plank right up and leave that hole open and then just plank it in afterwards. But the method of securing it and holding it, very important. In this particular case, you see how I'm holding it by the extended vice situation. I can tilt it, I can turn it, and it's very secure. You can clamp the block down. Much more secure than the one that you just buy that's got the swivel in it. Another view here, you see a little bit better. I use that vice. Those are, I just make those out of scrap wood, and anybody who wants a copy of them, I've got just a copy of what I've got here. But they do work, and you can see how firm you can hold. Now at this particular point, I'm progressing on and starting, still holding on the bottom vice, still, and putting my top deck, the underlay deck on at that point. But you still have real good control. Again, a little bit more of the clamping to put the top. And now just another view of the thing where I'm working more to the side, again with the ability to, and here again.
Question.
Yeah.
On where you have it clamped now, where the masts are, those pegs or those dowels, they're not glued in, are they?
Just
snug.
Yeah, just stick them in. Go in far enough to get this line out, just push it back in. And then
You're planking the top down or from the garboard?
whatever they want you to start, I'll get into that a little bit later on. Here again, build up enough blockage so you can fill in. You never, in the ends, in the front, you never get enough wood in there to do your final fitting. So just kind of fill in enough there. You're going to be taking that out later on. Again, in the front, don't be scared to put the wood in there underneath. You want to profile that area if you can, because it makes it a lot easier to plank. Here again, now you can see where I built in the stuff and I'm kind of bringing in and blending in the back part. If you wouldn't have filled that in, that's very difficult to plank when you get into that area. So makes a difference. Just take the time to do that. You can never put too much wood in. Again, showing a little bit more in the front now. Now I've got a pretty good profile, and importantly too, you want to make sure you ferry these things enough so that ferrying means that I've cut away the front part. And if you're going to the front, you always use the back measurement here and cut the front away. And leave the back, that's going to be your line, your final line. And then you profile the rest of the way as your plank comes around to the front. Here again, another view of that. Now, the other thing that I did is I would taper the plank, but I've got a better way of doing it
Yeah.
than this, and I'll get into that a little bit later on. These are pictures. Okay. Now I'm starting a planking operation here
Yeah.
where I use these are special clamps I made. One of the problems that you have is when you put these planks in, they don't line up with each other. So I make these little clamps here that when I get the wood vents here, I put these in so that you don't have the steps in there. It eliminates the amount of steps. In this particular case, I'm using, this would be the first stage planking, which is about almost a 16 feet, so you got quite a bit to work with. And you can also see that I've got other clamps in there. If you're putting the first stage on and you're gonna put another stage on, I just use the thumb screw and drill right through and screw them in because that gets covered over on the second layer goes over. Anyway, it's just a matter of what's, and sometimes just Bob likes to just put a little glue on and give them a shot of CA, but sometimes I like to hold them a little more secure. In this particular case, I'm using these clamps as I go around. And basically, if you're putting a second layer on, don't worry about holes or anything because you're going to be covering that up. And secondly, it's very important that you do all your blending on the first layer and do all your filling because your second layer is going to be about 15,000 thick. You don't have much sanding. You got to have your profile pretty close.
Question.
Yeah.
When you're on this part of the hall, where it's relatively flat and they just snug up to each other, it's fine. When you get down on this part of the hall, do you bevel the edges of the planks to?
If you want to, but if you're doing, it's not necessary if you're doing a two planking layer because your bevel, when you put your second layer on, is still only 15,006, so the bevel. However, I'll talk about another thing you need to pre-do as we go along. Remember, these were from different ships I built over the past. This is basically some of the clamps that I use. Now, I've explained once before, when you work with your woods, take time to lay them out and get them the way you want them to look. Random doesn't work all the time. I always lay out my planking. Now this is finished planking that you're not going to be painting over anything. And in this particular case, you want to kind of know what it's going to look like and you can pre-lay that out. Take the time to do that. It's just a lot of, otherwise later on you got wanting to, how do I get that stupid looking thing in there? It's just to help you. Again, showing a little bit more of, in this particular case, you see I'm using the darker wood here, and then you want to lay that out so you can pre-lay it out, it doesn't come that way. Just a little bit closer view, you can see now I'm putting on the first layer. The second layer actually is the darker finish, and that's only about 15,000 thick. And if you're going to just stain it, not paint it, you don't have a lot of capability to sand where you got white wood showing up, and then you got to cut a piece out, put another one in. So take time on the first one. A little bit more showing some of the clamping that I do, and again, you see I'm still holding on to the keel, even though I planked some. I still got my jaws going up in there, and I got a good firm hold on the thing. Here I'm demonstrating here how you eventually have to cut these off. And most of your ships that have a deck on, you'll have these on here to start with. And what I do is to make it a little easier, I just put a piece of tape in here because you don't want those glued on, but you want to form them so you edge glue these planks right here. And then I pre-saw in about this far from the end to end. So all I have to do is lay my saw. I don't have to come cutting up next step. You've got enough there. You don't need more than that. So pre-sawing those makes it a little more easy to remove these sections that you see right here. Okay, this was I'm just showing that I use some of the stain that Minwax is what I usually use. Showing some clamping building. That was on the paddle wheel one that I did. In this particular case here, I know I go crazy with tools, but I got some that really work good. And in this one, this is nothing more than a standard cutter, and I just put an extender on so I can cut my, in this case I was cutting all my planks for the deck. You just put them in, click, 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 you don't have to go to the saw so much faster. It's really a good tool to use. Give another demonstration here. I'll just be able to slip with it in. And how you get faster in building is you organize yourself on the steps that you're going to do and the things that you can save a little time on. Okay, the reason I'm showing this saw here is when you get their planking and they're all in this bundle here, they're not the same size. So just do a trim cut so that you can take their, I don't know if they shear them, how they do it, but they're fuzzy. And then I just run them through the saw and then I cut them down a little bit in size. Then you've got a nice straight edge. Otherwise, you've got that fuzzy edge. And some are thicker, some are thinner. So all my planks that I use, I pre-size them coming through. Just put it. You don't have to take much off. I just don't. I know they. I don't think they saw them. I think they shared themselves. Here again, this is a clamp that I developed. That is kind of clamps on here, and you swing it down, and it just holds it. So these are handmade ones that I made. I clamp them on here, and when you drop it down, it'll pull this plank up to it against. Again, showing how they, in this position, I've got them up, and I just made these out of hardwood here. And then when you swing them down, as you swing the back end down, it'll clamp up against this board and hold it in.
You ever use clothespins?
No, they're not strong.
Pardon me?
The clothespins don't hold them back. They're too awkward. They're too springy. No, I don't use clothespins. This is the one that in fact, it works so good that my son who works for Grable does all their product development, made me some with his process, so I don't have to make them out of wood anymore. But that's whatever. And basically, you watch your grade here. It's just a piece of, I think it was birch or something. Stuff like that is kind of here again, you can see now I'll clamp on here and then just flop them down and hold it against it. It's stuff maybe I get carried away a little bit, but that's okay. I call that creative thinking. Now you guys notice, you see these holes here? Actually, when I put these plank on, I just drilled and went and screwed them on because there's going to be another piece going on top. So you just screw them against there. You don't worry about that hole because you're going to it's a second decking that's going to be going on there. Works out pretty good, little view there. Now this is the one that I'm working on right now. So some of these pictures here. In this particular case, I'm showing how much I've stabilized the center area here to keep. Very important that you get these straight. And sometimes putting extra wood in there is not a problem. You can even use balsa wood if you want. Some people like to actually fill this in with balsa wood and then just kind of shake it. Now when you put your plank on, especially using single planking, you don't have to worry what goes in. You can glue it onto that balsa. A really good idea. So you kind of you actually bulk it out this way, fill those in with balsa wood. Now you can just profile the whole thing, and now you're putting the same thing as when I put this second on the first one here. You've got the profile. And balsa wood works really good for that. Another view here. Now you see how I'm actually holding on the masts, on the two masts here in this area here. because I'm now working in a different position, a little bit better view of how you can flip this thing around. I'm gonna just tell you guys, you can't buy enough of these licenses. They work that good. And especially if you get into the bigger ships. The small ones, you can use that little swivel thing, but, okay, another thing I'm gonna touch on right now is one of the problems that I see guys is making a mistake is they wait too long before they put their anchoring or the pedestal assembly in. In this particular case, I now have the profile, and I got that off, I matched it up with one of the bulkheads, and I now actually have a screw coming up through here, and then screws into the keel to hold this onto it. Eventually, I'll have it in the cradle, and I'll work off the cradle, but the trick is, now you have this cradle here, and you have to mount that on a baseboard. So what I do is, I make and I'll show you later on, this baseboard has this whole pattern of this, so when I transfer my location where these screws have to come up, I just use this baseboard, because now I know where the screws should be. And it's just kind of stuff, you can make a baseboard, a template pattern, and you can do your transfer. In this particular case, I'm showing how the two different woods start coming together. I think here again, showing some of the clamping. Sometimes now on the second stage, I will still drill in if I want to get something held down, and I can still drill into the lower one because it doesn't hurt, you're going to be covering that area anyway. A little better idea of this is the second deck here. These were the ones. Sometimes I use the old hole, sometimes I drill another one. It's usually about 25,000. So in this particular case, I'm bending the board enough where I want to make sure that I get it clamped down. And you can, and the other thing is, even when I do this, sometimes I'll go along here and touch a little CA glue on the bottom here, because you usually have a gap in here because of the board, and I'll just put a little CA glue and it sucks itself up in there and hold it down. That works very well too. On the second planking, another view of the second planking. What I'm demonstrating here is the type of iron, and I'm going to do a little bit more in the wide description here on bending wood. This is the one iron I use. There's also the round one. This is honestly, I wish I had bought these probably 10 years ago. These are little sanders. They are the neatest thing. They cost about $80 a piece because I don't want to change center rough and finish. I've got them setting here. I'll put a little demonstration on. The neatest thing for sanding, probably a third of the time, you can get this stuff controlled inside. And then this unit here you buy, and it has saws and different things drilled. It's a German product. These are the tools that are my chip kits. The reason I have 3 of them is I wore the chucks on them, 2 of them, just from the library. So now when I put them in, I wrap some tape around them and get them tight, but it's a pain in the ass if I got the round one and then get the store. So I just have 3 of them handy, so I can grab the one that I can use for that sandpaper. A little excessive, but these are some of the tools. These are sanding blocks that you use if you want to do some hand sanding, different ones. They work very well. And then I use just the standard carpenter glue, and then this is my CA glue here. So kind of paraphernalia that I relate to some of the things I do. And the other thing is, here's the trick. If you want to really work easy with the carpenter glue, buy the white glue that they use in schools because they have this kind of a cap on, and then dump the white stuff out and just put the yellow stuff in, and you can get by unscrewing this cap, you can get just the right bead, and you don't have to be digging around. The best glue applicator for carpenter glue, and the only way you can get these caps, you gotta buy that school thing because the other caps are too wide. So a little bit of, you don't waste that much glue, doesn't cost that much anyway. And here I'm showing you my cutter that I use for cutting planks. It's just so much faster to than doing the sawing thing, and I like this, I don't have to stand up to saw and sit down. But you gotta make sure, when you're not using lock and shut, those are sharper now, and they can do serious damage, and you want to watch out what you're doing there. Now, okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about what we want to do is parallel the plank so you don't have to put in steelers. And this is definitely a cheating. They didn't build ships this way, but what I do is because, and I've got a live demonstration here, I really taper the plank because you're going to have a bigger girth going around from the front and then also to the back. So if you taper your plank, you compensate for some of that, and it works out really good. And if you don't, like I said, they didn't build ships that way, but still, but this is probably a way that you could save time. And I took the fixture over here so I could kind of demonstrate. It's just a simple thing of a little guide, 2 pieces of hang wire. On the last part here, I wanted to explain how you really would do it if you're putting steelers in. If you're putting steelers in, you can either cut your wood like that and fit one in here, or you can do it like this. In other words, you've got 2 pieces and you're widening out, so you have to, you never in shipbuilding had a sharp corner because that would rot away. In model building, it doesn't make any difference, I leave it sharp. But that's the correct way to use steelers when you want to actually expand or contract an area where you have to keep your, so you don't do too much edge bending. You're limited to how much edge bending you want to be doing on this kind of thing.
Go ahead and click on the page. Just click on it.
Well, this is the last one anyway. So anyway, now, after I did all that, I thought, this is good. I have time now to put together something a little bit more alive. And this will probably answer some of your questions. As you can see, I do things a little differently than what they show in the book, but it works for me. And that's what really counts. If it works for you, then do it that way. So I will now go into a kind of a live demonstration here. Marley, are you watching? Where are you? Okay, so now we'll go back to, you've seen in the past here some of the things I did, secondary, primary, and then we've got a situation here where I explained on the thing of using the template here. When I get done, I've got my screw holes put in here. I'll be able to attach this, but I'll lay my template down and I can transfer the template into my wood block exactly where this is. Otherwise, you're going to have a tough time trying to find something that thin. So the precaution of it is doing that part of it. As far as tapering, let's talk a little bit about bending. Now, in most cases, you can wet it and it'll bend good. But this is just dry bending. So most of the time, I just use this iron right here, and I just dry bend the curve that I'm going to be using, and I don't screw around doing the wet stuff. Wetting is okay, but you got to remember it shrinks a little bit. It's a little time consuming. And while we're on the subject, going back to stupidity, this is why I think I got my first lung infection, because they said, you have mold in your house. I said, no, I don't have mold in my house. Well, we're detecting that you're exposed to mold. I kept thinking, mold. Then I thought, that little jar, that little tube that I have, where I put my tube in. For 3 years, I've been adding water to that thing.
But you never take
And,
clean it up.
and I bring it out and I wipe it with my hands. Shit, I dumped it out. It almost walked out of there. I mean, it was so moldy. And I think that's where I got my first lung problem, from that stupid mold that I was literally handling, not knowing that that's what it, and mold will do that. So I think my first part is I created with my stupidity of not changing that water. I thought adding water. There were they just about walked out of there, those little molds. I couldn't believe it. I mean, they were that bad. So I do use the wet process if I can. Now, in the process of getting if you want, and anytime you guys want to use any of my stuff, just ask. This is a very neat
I
device.
have a question.
Yeah.
You were talking about steelers.
Mhm.
On the first level, or first thing of planking, you don't need to cut. I mean,
You see how I
you
treat
can
it?
come to the sharp points.
You
It
see how
doesn't
I
make
treat
any
it?
difference. But if it was on this level and you had to do a
If
steeler,
it's mahogany and showing, you probably don't want it to look. You're going to see this.
Yeah.
Here you cheat all you can. You see what I did here? I just put pieces in here.
Right.
But this is the king of the tools when you get into doing any sanding or anything like that, because this thing. You gotta be fast and not running to this thing eats it real fast. So if you want to do profiling or something, neat little tool. Yours to borrow, but don't be pissed off if you ruin your project. If you don't have any wood left. Okay, then the next thing that I came up with was, of course, this is still my old standby for doing any of the profiling in through here. Now notice here that this block is tapered about 1/3. And I start here. I never figure out how many planks it's going to take. I just figure when you got to here, look how far you're traveling, look how far you're traveling. And I find if I start here about taking 1/3, as long as you don't do this plank turning down, you're fine. So from about here on down, I've actually tapered these planks so they're smaller at the end than they are back here. It makes the front end a little easier to fit. Now let's talk a little bit about the device to do that. Very, very simple device. Makes you feel like a carpenter because you're actually planing it. It's just as simple as doing that. This guide is just slightly thinner than the block of wood that you're putting in there. So this will taper down to here and about down to here. So this the piece that's in here will be tapered from about here to here. Stop with trying to figure out how many planks it's going to take. Just start working this, and this works really good because
So this piece of wood is just a spacer.
it's a guide. So I
So
said,
real plant type.
yeah, what you do now, you just. In fact, I've got some extra aluminum left if anybody wants it. I put more than I need. And so when I get it in here, I just clamp the block. In other words, is there a piece of that here? Let's say that we're going to taper this one. Okay. All right. So you start out. You need a guide. Okay. So you see at this point, take your planer. You feel like a real carpenter, then you just listen to the rolling out. That's fun. And now when you get done, you've got yourself a tapered plank from here to here. So your plank is tapered from here to here. And now you're avoiding having to put a steeler in as soon as you would otherwise. So just actually take the thing back out. You've got your tapered plank.
So are you cutting it with a razor?
Huh?
I'm sorry, are you using a razor to cut that, or?
A little block planer. Feel like a real
Plane,
carpenter
chisel,
when you do that.
anything.
Little planer.
Anything with
Yeah.
a sharp edge.
I hear various
use a knife
things.
blade if you wanted.
One
It's
is
thin
that
enough.
when you do this on the bow, you do it from the top,
Makes no difference.
and and
You
at
can-
the other end,
Just so they're smaller, it just makes no difference whatsoever.
okay.
Plus they bend a little easier.
use the
But
same
it's,
block.
I've never seen
don't
it
take
put
the-
in
that
a
would
book
be
this
actually
way.
the safest
But it's a
way to
sensible
do it,
way
'cause
to
then you
do
don't have to worry
it.
about grain
You're
drift.
building,
Sweater.
modeling is a lot of fakery, really, is what it gets down to. You don't have everything just exactly right, and you don't need to have everything right. It's what works. But here again, you see, this is the simplest thing. I've never seen anything in any book or anything. It's just the simplest thing to taper your logs. It's fun. In other words, planking can be fun if you use it as a project. That's a project of, okay, planking is a process. I didn't realize that Bob, I think you told me, he likes planking.
He loves playing.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of whatever it is. Now, getting back to,
May I make a comment? I went to Home Depot
mhm.
and I got about a 6-foot piece of aluminum and I cut it in half and that's how I made these two.
Yeah, you don't need it longer than this.
No, but I mean, that's the size.
But here again, I should be a salesman for these devices because I found so many uses, but it's so quick to use. Now, one of the problems that I had, especially in the first stage, you've got a lot of rough stuff sticking up here, and sanding that by hand was always a problem because these blocks are fine, but you have to remove anything. So this German product that I have here, actually, it's a transformer that takes different, you can put a drill, you can buy the drills, or you can buy anything. But this one here, they have a 3-point, they're set on rubber here, and this is a finer sandpaper, because I didn't want to, at 80 bucks, I didn't want to be always changing the sandpaper, and this is a coarser sandpaper. So how they work, it's just crazy. Now, I didn't want to get down to, this is what I didn't want to do, keep changing. And when I get done, I'll have a nice, really nice plate. See, again, I can't be taking too much off. Doesn't get easier than that.
Duane,
Yeah.
now, that's fine, you're making a model. How did they do the real big heavy lights on?
They weren't that smooth. Look at it, oh shit.
Okay.
There was no.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you can see planking lines on every ship.
I'll bet you there's half-inch
Yeah.
steps, 1-inch
Yeah.
steps in there.
And that's why they had caulking.
Yeah, that's what, yeah, they caulked it together,
They
yeah.
caulked
The
the,
paint kinda hides it.
yeah, they caulked
Oh,
the
yeah.
seams.
Do you put in a garboard at the bottom?
So what?
I think it's called a garboard.
Garbage, that's the first plank.
The first plank
Off
in
the
the
keel is a garbage.
Yeah.
And it's thicker than the regular planking.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
It's thicker.
Thicker.
Yeah.
Then the first garbage plank is thicker than the rest of the planks on the ship.
Yeah. First strength,
Yeah.
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 No, I don't, because it's something you don't see. It's, a lot of the stuff
That's
is,
not usually addressed in.
it's how crazy you want to get to detail.
Yeah.
And detail sometimes only affects the guy that's putting it on there. Other people don't really care about it that much, not a big thing. So that's kind of, Jordan, since you requested this at the last meeting, I am now putting this together for you.
Very well done.
And you showed up at the meeting and I'm happy.
Very well done. When you go to YouTube, you see all these demonstrations, and the reason I was asking these questions is that various demonstrations make big deals about you got a garboard, you gotta have the one just above it, it's a certain shape. And, you know, they go make a big deal out of certain things that you're not making a big deal out of.
Mhm.
But it raises a question in my mind, is what they're saying an exaggeration, or is it appropriate?
I find that a lot of the books didn't have access to the tooling that we have, or you didn't know how to use it. But these are,
Those
you know,
are-
when I'm doing this profiling here,
Yeah, that's-
I mean, you can't be, no, don't get me wrong, when I get done, I still will go with a block and actually smooth it out. But your surfaces, you got all the rough edges, and you haven't eaten anything away.
Yeah.
So anytime you guys get to a point where you want to sand a hull or something, borrow this unit here because it's fun to use.
Yeah.
And the thing of it is, the bigger hand rotators you can't handle because you're just tearing everything up. Where these things kind of smooth out.
Now, the question is, what kind of wood are you using?
This is just probably soft wood. This is not mahogany or anything because this gets painted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is it basswood? It's not.
It's a
not-
basswood form.
That's not a pine,
I don't really know. It came from Europe. I don't know. Whatever trees they have over there.
could you use pine?
Sure. No. No problem.
Basically anything soft then, huh?
Yeah, it's if you're gonna paint it.
Yeah.
Don't use pine if you want to stain it. Then use your mahoganies or some of the other
Yeah.
woods. But I guess this was an ideal thing because I wanted to show you all the cheating I do to put the first coat on. There's no, so I just blend them in here. And there's a lot of heavy duty sanding. And, I think I still got some fill on here. Some of the back ones back here that I gotta get off
Yeah.
when I get to that. But don't get carried away with too technical stuff that nobody sees. That's how you waste time. In other words, you just feel so good you went to bed, I did it right. That's what happens when you build about 19 of them. You finally figure, oh, I didn't have to do that.
Right.
I don't build them as fast as they do in China,
Excuse me.
but I move them along.
Okay.
So I think this is helpful if I can show you different ways to do it that you don't see in the book. And hopefully that help you understand. The thing to watch is get yourself to the point where you can handle the situation. And here again, I can't emphasize enough of these plants because you're actually at a point where you can move stuff around. You can get different areas. It's the neatest thing. And here again, gosh, I'm just hanging on to those stems there. Now, in this side over here, I've got a lot of filler left that I'm gonna have to just sand off. But,
I was gonna say, this, from your arm standpoint, it's like, it's filling right there in the middle, it's sagging.
probably, but you gotta understand that by the time, you see what happens is, you were talking about beveling. The reason it's not on two stages here, it's not that important because, see, this is fairly rough here right now. But when I get to this side,
You can run the sand until you like.
well, you see all that roughness starts. See how fast it takes it off? So you're eventually will smooth out that part. I do probably in a third of the time what I used to do the other way since I bought these. And I just figure these are about $80 a piece. And once you buy the transformers, maybe 90 something, but I got a little saw that goes with that and all that.
Oh, yeah.
I probably have bought more stuff from that Micro Mart than anybody living. I don't think there's something they make that I don't have. I told them about that one. Well, I call, and now they got this shit where they don't answer the phone anymore. I said, you know, once you're more important than the customer, you gotta rethink that a little bit. If your time is more important than the customer's,
Yeah.
if you're running a business, you don't do that.
That's right.
And she said, I agree with you, we don't like the policy, but that's what they do. We'll call you back in a day or two.
Oh, no kidding.
That's what they say. And they do, but then sometimes your phone is not on or something like that.
Yeah.
Take the order and
Yeah.
if you're gonna be in business,
Yeah.
I never, in all the years I ran my two companies, I never had an answering service. Somebody always answered the phone. Because you irritate
Yeah,
people.
that's right.
You're telling them that your time is more important than theirs.
That's
They're the
right.
customer.
That's right.
In medicine, these patient